And they're saying to each other, let's go and hear a word from the Lord. You know that guy who claims to be a prophet, claims to speak for the Lord? Well, they're talking about you, Ezekiel. And they're talking about how they should every once in a while just go to your house and hear what he has to say, to go and watch the spectacle. Turn me, if you would, for just a moment, back a few books to Ecclesiastes. I want to read you a passage here that kind of gives you an idea of what I'm talking about. Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, chapter 9. And we'll look at verses 13 to 18. Chapter 9. We'll look at verses 13 to 18. Here Solomon says, "Also this I came to see as wisdom under the sun, and it impressed me. There was a small city with few men in it, and a great king came to it, surrounded it, and constructed large siege works against it. But there was found in it a poor wise man, and he delivered the city by his wisdom. Yet no one remembered that poor man. So I said, wisdom is better than strength, but the wisdom of the poor man is despised, and his words are not heeded. The words of the wise heard in quietness are better than the shouting of a ruler among fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good." See what Solomon is saying here? This is a poor man who was living in a quiet place, speaking quiet words, and that's wisdom. You can't expect, I'm telling you today, you can't expect for wisdom and truth to be attended by great spectacle. And I think one of the chief reasons why we're ignorant today is because we doubt the veracity and the authority of the wisdom when we hear it. Because we're conditioned to want to hear or to have something verify or give credibility to the truth. We want to have somebody speak with a voice of thunder. Any savage you can get a whole nation of savages to follow you if you create a big enough spectacle, right? There's the famous story of the British explorer who was being held captive in South America by tribes, and he was going to be killed. But he, being a man of letters, he'd studied, he knew that an eclipse was coming. And he could accurately, by using his calendar and so forth, determine when that eclipse was going to happen. He began to prophesy about it to them, hoping that when it came to pass, it would give him power. And when it did come to pass, they all of a sudden thought him a god. And it's not because of the substance of what he was saying, but because he created a spectacle. Remember, the people of Malta were willing to worship Paul as a god because he survived a snake bite. All I'm saying here is that because Ezekiel was just a single man, a married man, living on a river in slavery, they tended to doubt what he was saying as being from the Lord because of him, because he was insignificant, because he wasn't powerful, and because you didn't have the great rulers of the day coming to hear him speak and so forth. And one of my concerns about ignorance today is that oftentimes the great truth, the great wisdom is being spoken in a quiet place. Solomon says, people love to go. Great crowds are gathered to hear a ruler shout. The bombast and the spectacle and the lights and so forth. He said all the people flock after the ruler who's shouting, who's a fool. But nobody wants to go to that quiet place and listen to that poor man speak wisdom. And all I'm saying is that, I don't want you to reject or to doubt what you hear from a place like this today, because it's not packed in here. This is a small church on the side of the hill, and it's being attended today by people who come to hear the truth. And I'm saying some people will never give what you hear in this place a chance because it's not loud, because it's not bombastic, and because it's not attended by half the world. Okay, but all I'm saying is when you hear the truth, don't reject it because of the messenger or his venue. Okay, and don't wait for the thunder. It might be too late. We will hear the thunder, but it might be a judgment. Remember that wisdom is often spoken in a quiet place by someone who appears to be rejected by the world. Okay, so that's the first problem I think that the people of Israel had. They doubted, and we learned this more from verse 33, but they doubted that Ezekiel was a prophet at all. And because they doubted him, they didn't get to benefit from what he was saying. They just kind of mocked him for that. Well, the second axis power, which I believe has to be overthrown, is that of lust. Look at verses 31 to 32. God continues and he says, they come to you as people come, and they sit before you as my people, and hear your words, but they do not do them. For they do the lustful desires expressed by their mouth, and their heart goes after their gain. And behold, you are to them like a sensual song, by one who has a beautiful voice and plays well on an instrument. For they hear your words, but they do not practice them. Now, this is by and large the truth. That hit songs on the radio, what makes a song a hit has more to do with the melody than it does with the message, most of the time. What makes a song a hit is because it sounds good. And it's the same with movies. Typically what makes a movie a hit is the stars who star in them, the pretty faces and the pretty cinematography or the graphics that are employed in the movie, and not just the message. For the most part today, you can have a meaningless lyric. If it's attended by a beautiful melody, it'll be a hit. And you can have an unsubstantial movie with almost no plot, but if it has beautiful people in it, with beautiful images, eye candy, it can be a hit. Now, I only say this to say, why is that the case? Well, because we have 5 senses and only one mind. Our mind is outnumbered by our senses. Our mind is outnumbered by sight and sound, taste, smell, and touch, right? And so with our minds, our reason is outnumbered. And so it is with these people here. Lust is a real problem for the person trying to impart knowledge and understanding, because we are so easily gratified if our appetites are only sensual. If all you have is an appetite for the senses, for your sight to be gratified, for your ears to be gratified, your taste and touch and smell to be gratified, if that's your appetites, it's very easy to have those met. These coming to listen to Ezekiel, they did not have an appetite for righteousness or for its application. Okay, they really weren't interested in learning about God and his character or the law, or applying it to their lives or changing. What they did have an appetite for was elocution and wit and argument and an apt illustration. They loved to hear somebody speak well. They loved to hear somebody with wit. They loved to hear a good argument made, a sound argument made. They loved to hear an apt illustration. And it really didn't matter the substance of what Ezekiel was saying. It was the manner in which he was saying. And they were pleased and gratified and blessed just by the manner of what he was saying, and really disregarded the message entirely. They were being gratified by their senses and were neglecting their minds. This is like pagans. We have pagans in our country. I'm a former pagan. But it's like pagans who find it far easier to worship the creation than the Creator. It's much easier for us to worship something that we can see and touch and feel and smell than it would be to worship something that we cannot see, that we cannot hear, and who's invisible. It's much easier. Paul talks about it's much easier to worship the creation than the Creator, because to worship the Creator, we have to employ what? Our spirits and our minds and our hearts. It's so easy to worship something that we can see. Okay? And so lust is a real problem with ignorance, because if we're only having an appetite for what we can see and taste and touch and smell and hear, then we're going to be quickly gratified and neglect what is really important. Now, I think Christian media has made a mistake in this regard.